Hi guys, it is day 8 of the Ethony Tarot Challenge, and today's question is, what were the first 3 tarot spreads that you learned? And I'm going to be honest, it's a miracle that I am still reading because the first 3 spreads that I learned, or rather the first 2, were the Celtic Cross and this 12 card astrological spread, which were both so incredibly complicated and time consuming and frequently didn't answer the question that I wanted to get an answer to. So, in my head for years, which is probably why I only read tarot for birthdays and New Year's and rites of passage, tarot was this big, complicated thing that meant I was going to be sitting down for at least an hour with all these cards and looking up meanings and trying to sort out how the card in a particular position fit into my question, and what if my question was about something in the future, but this card reflected the past, and how does that work? And bleh, it was not great. So those, for probably 20 years, those were the spreads that I worked with. And then all of a sudden, a couple years ago, I started seeing people on blogs or different websites doing single card draws or 2 card spreads or 3 card spreads and making up their own spreads. And it was like, oh my god, this doesn't have to be a huge sit down complicated affair. You can just draw a single card to get an answer to your question. And that was massive for me. Very liberating. And then I started doing a single card draw every day, and that was so much easier to, in my opinion, to learn the cards when you're working with one card at a time, and you can really focus on that one card and what it means and all the different subtleties and nuances of that card. So now I work with a ton of different spreads. I have a whole notebook that has a library, and it's categorized by, is this for business? Is this for relationships? Is it related to specific phases of the moons or astrological signs? Massive geek out about tarot spreads. But I think that the point was, there are so many different spreads out there, and different spreads work for different things, that once I figured that out, that I wasn't just limited or locked into these 2 spreads, that was a whole new world for me, and just helped me in so many ways as a reader, and really, really, really moved some huge blocks for me. Once I was able to start working with 1 card at a time, or just 2 or 3 cards at a time, I was able to start working on my intuition and becoming a much more intuitive reader. So that's been amazing, and I'm really grateful for that. And if I'd stayed with those 2 original spreads that I learned, I would never have made that transition and gotten to where I am now. So I'm grateful that I can do larger, more complicated spreads, and I understand how the positions of the cards relate to each other, and how you can assign meaning for a card in a particular position as it relates to your question. But I also am glad that I have the freedom and flexibility now to make my own spreads or work with smaller spreads and figure out what works for me. I'm not a huge fan of the Celtic Cross. That's okay. Once in a while I'll use it. Once in a while I'll still do the 12 card astrology spread. For example, I just did it for New Year's. I like to do it around my birthday every year. But I love learning new spreads and trying different things and figuring out what spread is really going to resonate best with the question that I'm asking. So we'll talk about that more in another prompt, but those are the first few spreads that I learned. Bye!